safety while working at heights, a cybersecurity collaboration, and sensing your way to a smoother supply chain. Pull up a chair and join us as the editors of DC Velocity discuss these stories, as well as news and supply chain trends on this week's Logistics Matters podcast. Hi, I'm Dave Maloney. I'm the Group Editorial Director at DC Velocity. Welcome. Logistics Matters is sponsored by Storage Solutions. As the official North American arm of Jungheinrich, Storage Solutions brings more than 70 years of material handling and automation experience to operations across the United States and Canada. As you continue to plan for 2026, they can help you explore smarter automation, improve productivity, and build a strategy for long-term success. Learn more at storage-solutions.com. As usual, our DC Velocity senior editors Ben Ames and Victoria Kickham will be along to provide their insights into the top stories of this week. But to begin today, this is Friday the 13th, and you've probably heard that old adage not to walk under ladders. That warning is probably not so much because it might bring you bad luck, but because it's an unsafe thing to do. And that brings us to our guest today. March is National Ladder Safety Month in the United States, a reminder to follow proper safety procedures while working at heights in warehouses and distribution centers, among other places. I talked recently about ladder safety with Mike Van Bree, who's the Director of Product Safety and Engineering at Louisville Ladder Inc, and he's also the President of the American Ladder Institute. Here now is our conversation. Welcome, Mike. It's good to have you with us today on Logistics Matters.
David, I appreciate this opportunity to talk a bit about ladder safety. Thank you so much.
It's our pleasure. So to begin with, can you tell me a bit about the work of the American Ladder Institute?
Well, as you're indicating, the American Ladder Institute is our industry trade association, and the primary mission that all the ladder manufacturers have in common is promoting ladder safety. So that really begins with the development of the National Consensus Safety Standards. So the ALI is the ANSI accredited standards developer for the suite of A14 standards that pertain to the different types of climbing equipment, portable ladders, and even the fixed ladders.
And of course, March is designated as National Ladder Safety Month. Can you tell me about what you're doing to recognize the need for safety when working with ladders?
Yes, we're actually hosting our 10th National Ladder Safety Month campaign in March. We're excited about that, and we see continued growth in awareness of this effort year over year, and that's because as an industry we see the need for promoting that continuous awareness of ladder safety. So we're always vigilant in that regard, and National Ladder Safety Month every March gives us a great way to highlight the start of construction season primarily, but it's an everyday issue.
Right. And of course, people use ladders regularly. I was changing a light the other night and had a ladder. So it's something that everybody's familiar with to some degree, but of course, importantly, people who work with them on an everyday basis within facilities have to be aware of safety. Do you have any data on the problems of injuries that occur when people are working at heights?
Well, we know OSHA reports their ladder citations as being in the top 10 year after year, and those fines are pretty considerable. So determining how that exactly correlates to injuries, the point of your question, that information is not readily available from OSHA, but as an industry, we certainly know there are injuries, and investigation of these events shows that they're virtually all preventable if the safety instructions of the ladders are followed. And that's the mission of the ALI and National Ladder Safety Month campaign, to get that message out.
Of course, we at DC Velocity cover warehouses and other facilities where workers are often working at heights, such as picking products from storage racks, working on elevated mezzanines. And they'll use ladders. Sometimes they're fixed ladders that may roll, or they could be the kind of like stair kind of rolling ladders that move from place to place. What can people in these positions do to assure a safe work environment?
Well, sure. Those different types of ladders that you mentioned are exactly the types of products that we cover. With the A14 suite of safety standards, so those standards by and large follow a pretty regular format of helping people to properly select the right tool for the job. Once you've got that correct ladder, then inspect it before you do anything, before you set it up, before you climb it. Make sure you inspect it. Then do that setup appropriately based on the type of ladder. Is it a self-supporting ladder? Is it a fixed ladder? Obviously, that's already set up. And then use it in a safe manner. Climb attentively.
You talked about inspection a moment ago. What should people be looking for when they inspect ladders to make sure that they can prevent injuries and it's working properly?
David, it's a critical step to inspect for damage or missing parts. So in the category of warehousing type equipment, you're often talking about casters. Are they allowing you to move the ladder in a safe manner? Release mechanisms. So to the extent that these mobile ladder stand platform products have a release mechanism, or some of them have springs, you want to make sure that there are no obstructions, that everything's functioning properly to release and allow that ladder to come into contact with the ground and be properly supported. You want to check all your connections, such as the welds and any securing fasteners. And finally, the labeling. The products have labels that include all of this information pertaining to that inspection, the setup, the use. Those key steps are covered on the labels. And that's one of the unique things about ladders is, unlike a lot of products that require an owner's manual, we work very hard to put the essential information onto those labels. So you want to make sure that they're in good readable condition, and you can avail yourself of that information as you're setting up and using the ladder.
Is it common for workers to use any kind of harness or restraints when they're working on ladders at height?
Yeah, David, ladders, portable ladders are generally an exception to the fall protection requirements. So when you're talking about lifts and some other devices that allow you to work at elevation where those sorts of harnesses and fall protection are required, ladders, because of their portable nature and the unique ability that they provide, the utility that they provide to the users, you don't have anchor points available for the fall protection. Now, certain industries or circumstances can dictate differently, and you always want to follow your employer's instructions or your industry specific requirements. But generally speaking, ladders do not have fall protection requirements like you're describing.
What are some other simple steps that workers need to take to assure that they have a safe workday when working at heights?
Well, warehouse work often pertains to the mobile ladder stands and mobile ladder stand platforms, like I said. But the steps for that safe work are really the same as other ladders, step ladders and extension ladders too, for example. You want to make sure you've got the right tool. Is it made out of the right material? Is it the proper duty rating? Those particular things that you want to be attentive to. Inspecting it, as we've already talked about. Setup. As you're positioning this ladder for a setup, often these are taller ladders that are fixed structures where they are not being laid over and moved into position. If it's the generically called warehouse ladders that you're rolling into position, so you want to make sure there's no obstructions to rolling. You want to make sure there's no overhead obstructions, particularly electrical if it's a steel warehouse ladder. You want to be very careful to position and get those things into the work location safely, and then use them with attentiveness. These types of products are designed in two different ways. Some are forward-facing descent. That means you can walk down them like a stairway. Those are not always the case. Most actually are ladders where you're climbing facing the structure. So you need to make very sure that you understand what type of product you have, what the safe use expectations are for that product. But those are some simple steps that'll help make sure that at the end of the workday, you're going home safely.
Mike, how can people find out more about the activities of the American Ladder Institute and the National Ladder Safety Month in particular?
So we've got a couple of websites that I'd like to direct the listeners to. The key one here at National Ladder Safety Month with March, being upon us, laddersafetymonth.com has some excellent resources. There's flyers in there and things that employers can utilize to help with their training efforts. We also have laddersafetytraining.org that will direct you straight to our video-based safety training programs, including for the mobile ladder stands, mobile ladder stand platforms, also step ladders. We recently, within the last year, introduced a new one for leaning ladders, for extensions, telescoping type ladders, those sorts of things. So those resources, I can't stress enough how much content we've put in there over 10 years. We keep all of this information year over year. There's prior webinars that people could go back and listen to, for example. So just a wealth of information there. And if somebody spends a few minutes, I think they'll find something that helps them to help, people focus on safety, ladder safety.
Certainly worth checking out. And we'll be sure to put those in the podcast notes section, those links for people to refer to. We've been talking to Mike Van Bree. He's the Director of Product Safety and Engineering at Louisville Ladder Incorporated, and he's also currently the President of the American Ladder Institute. Thank you again, Mike, for being with us today on Logistics Matters.
David, thank you so much for the chance to talk a little bit about ladder safety.
It's our pleasure. Now let's take a look at some of the other supply chain news from the week. And we keep hearing in the news about cyber attacks hitting all sorts of companies, and it certainly takes diligence and the right technologies to keep ahead of the bad guys. And Ben, you wrote this week of a new collaboration to improve on cybersecurity in the automation and manufacturing industries.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Fending off hackers is a technical task. I think we all know some basic hygiene about not clicking on fishy links, but it's much harder than that, of course. It turns out that that's also true not just for us individuals with our email, but also, of course, for entire companies. And this week we saw the launch of a new plan by a collection of businesses in Europe to cooperate on joining together to set standards and practices for cybersecurity. And as you noted at the top, specifically for software used in industrial automation and manufacturing. The group is called Enforcers, which is an acronym for Enhanced Cooperation for Cybersecurity. And they get extra points for having a cool name, I think. And it brings together a partnership of industrial manufacturers, cybersecurity tech firms, and applied research organizations. And they kicked off this new collaboration by meeting in person last month in February in Karlsruhe, Germany, with the goal to set the stage, they said, for close cross-border collaboration. And all of this is enabled by funding, by participation from the companies that are part of the group, and also by funding from the European Union itself.
Well, Ben, that sounds like an important mission, but did they say how they actually plan to achieve it?
Right, and I would quickly get out of my depth getting into that question, but basically the answer is by working as a team. Their overall strategy is to close the loop, they said, between incident detection and coordinated response. They said that's particularly relevant for automation and manufacturing environments, where they noted that software often must be updated across segmented or disconnected networks. And that goes to the sense of the supply chain or supply networks. There are so many partners, so many collaboration systems that go on. So over the next 3 years, Enforcers said that they'll deliver technical demonstrations, they'll set best practices, training activities, and they'll contribute to things like standardization and certification discussions. This is just sort of the bricks and mortar that goes to building a better defense. A little bit longer term, they said they want to create results that are replicable across sectors and that strengthen Europe's digital sovereignty. Basically, they're saying that no one organization can do this alone because, of course, we're all interconnected across the internet. So if that one business or that one person gets hacked, that can really open up doors into having vulnerabilities toward other victims. So hopefully this new approach will help create a safer environment in Europe. And that really helps people worldwide because we all know the internet is global.
Right. And it is certainly global. And we hope they have success with that approach. And it's something hopefully that can also be shared to protect others.
We hope it turns out that way. Yep. It's scary stuff.
Yeah. Thank you, Ben.
Glad to.
And Victoria, I get the sense that you want to talk about sensors. One of the stories you researched for the March issue of DC Velocity.
That's right. Yes, I would, Dave. I wrote about sensors for this month's issue, in large part because they are such an integral part of today's supply chains. It seems like sensors are everywhere in our daily lives, but in logistics, they're on the loading dock, they're embedded into warehouse equipment and systems, and they're even on the road in vehicles and in the systems those vehicles use to communicate en route to delivery sites and so forth. All of this technology makes it much easier to manage your supply chain, and research shows that the trend is only going to accelerate. Global demand for sensors in logistics is set to double between 2024 and 2033, according to some different industry reports. Now, my story examines how sensor technology is helping companies improve efficiency, accuracy, and security in their supply chains. And specifically, I looked into an inventory project by Walmart and a recent market expansion by a transportation industry startup, both of which showed just how powerful sensors are in logistics.
Well, Victoria, tell us a bit about those projects. What did you learn?
Well, the first one has to do with ambient IoT, which is a technology that embeds tiny sensors into everyday objects and surroundings to measure a variety of conditions, things like movement, temperature, humidity, light. In logistics, the technology allows companies to continuously transmit data about products as they move through the supply chain. And Walmart is working with a company called Wiliot to deploy this technology and monitor its supply chain. So Wiliot is an IoT technology firm that develops battery-free sensor tags called pixels that can be applied to pallets, cases, and individual items for asset tracking and monitoring. In this case, millions of Wiliot's pixels, which are about the size of a postage stamp, are being applied to pallets of goods moving through Walmart's supply chain. And those pixels provide continuous real-time insight into the company's inventory at its warehouses, in distribution centers, and in stores. You can just imagine the wealth of information that they're getting from those little tags. The second project is a trucking industry initiative from a tech startup called Genlogs. Now, Genlogs recently announced a $60 million funding round to continue building its trucking intelligence platform. And that platform tracks fleet movements to ensure that shipments are safely on the way to their destinations. Genlogs uses trillions of data points collected from millions of satellites and sensors, including sensors embedded in cameras that are attached to roadside infrastructure and at ports around the country. And they use them to capture real-time data on trucks. The company then applies a proprietary AI to expose patterns that allow customers essentially to conduct better carrier sourcing, vetting, and underwriting. Now, Genlogs explains that by understanding the true movements of a fleet, through this technology, customers can then verify that those patterns match the carrier's digital footprint. And this helps ensure that shipments are secure. So it addresses the huge problem of cargo theft and freight fraud, which we've talked about a lot here on the podcast. There's a lot more to this project and the Walmart project. That's just sort of it in a nutshell, but readers can learn more by checking out the story, which, as you said, is in our March issue, both online and in print.
Well, at the risk of another bad pun, I guess that all makes sense, and I hope readers will check it out.
It certainly does.
Thank you, Victoria.
You're welcome.
We encourage listeners to go to dcvelocity.com for more on these and other supply chain stories. Also, check out the podcast notes section for some direct links to read more about the topics that we discussed today. And we'd like to thank Mike Van Bree of the American Ladder Institute for being our guest, We welcome your comments on this topic and our other stories. You can email us at podcast@agilebme.com. We also encourage you to subscribe to Logistics Matters at your favorite podcast platform. Our new episodes are uploaded on Fridays. And a reminder that Logistics Matters is sponsored by Storage Solutions. As the official North American arm of Jungheinrich, Storage Solutions brings more than 70 years of material handling and automation experience to operations across the United States and Canada. As you continue to plan for 2026, they can help you explore smarter automation, improve productivity, and build a strategy for long-term success. Learn more at storage-solutions.com. We'll be back again next week with another edition of Logistics Matters. Be sure to join us. Until then, have a great week.